Pagepedia, the global data system of information. It is with utmost humility and sincerity that we present Professor Pat Utomi, co-founder of Lagos Business School, as a living testament and recollection of history in the making in our generation.
I know I can count on me, so stand up for the champions, stand up, stand up, stand up.
Well, my name is Pat Utomi. I'm an academic, a social entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur. Okay, I was born on the 6th of February in 1956, actually a date of some interest in the calendar of Nigeria. I was born in Kaduna, in the northern part of Nigeria, as it was then in colonial Nigeria, the capital of the northern region, on the day that the Queen, the young Queen of England, was making her first visit to these parts of the colonies. Queen Elizabeth II arrived Kaduna, and on the 6th of February, my mother was one of those empire subjects, as they used to say, who went out to wave to the Queen and went into labor. So I was not born in a hospital. I didn't make it to the hospital. So February 6th of 1956, I was born in Kaduna. I'm one of those Nigerians who have a very pan-Nigerian upbringing. That's why I'm often reluctant to answer the question of ethnic background. I was born in Kaduna. I was baptized in Jos. As an infant, I lived in Maiduguri. I started school in Kano. Most of my primary education was in Guzo town in what is today's Zamfara state. And I started high school in Onitsha. But most of my high school education took place in Ibadan. I went from Christ the King's College in Onitsha to Loyola College in Ibadan. And after that, I ended up at the University of Nigeria in the East. And after my years at the University of Nigeria, I went straight from NYSC. The day I finished NYSC, I was on a plane off to graduate school in the United States of America. Went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. At the end of 5 years, I'd managed to complete work on 2 master's degrees and a PhD, and I returned to Nigeria the same very day my PhD thesis was accepted. Of course, since then, I've been to several other institutions, including INSEAD, the European Business School in Fontainebleau in France, the Harvard Business School, the Kellogg School at Northwestern. Of course, during this period, my interests in the various disciplines that I've passed through, disciplines of policy economics, the disciplines of public administration, and political science, and mass communication, have defined the web of both academic and business interests. And that had led me to being active in businesses in several areas. So, my parents come out of Delta State. They were both from a town in what is called Delta North, Ibuzo, in the Delta State Capital Territory. But I have lived most of my life in Lagos, including going to school in Ibadan from Lagos. And generally, I'm comfortable any part of Nigeria. Speak the 3 major languages of Nigeria, alongside, of course, the language of expression I'm using now, English. Most of my adult life, I've been a business angel, working with a variety of entrepreneurs to create enterprises which have covered quite a spectrum, from information and communications technology to media in traditional media form, producing a newspaper called Business Day, for example, in Nigeria, creating ventures in the agriculture value chain, creating ventures. In fact, one that put Nigeria on the internet was conceived in my office. But in the main, I have grown up with an interdisciplinary base. In fact, part of the reason that there is some difficulty pigeonholing me sometimes is because of the kind of spread of academic base. In that very early in my life, my professional interest was to be an airline pilot. I didn't actually think that I would go on to university, but as it turned out, most interesting incident led me to going off to university, to the University of Nigeria, and from that track, I went academic. I returned to Nigeria after my PhD in 1982, and since then I have been involved in a number of things, including serving in an advisory position to the President of Nigeria in 1983, serving in industry, becoming the first Nigerian to be Chief Operating Officer, Deputy Chief Executive, and Acting Managing Director of Volkswagen's plant in Nigeria back in the early 80s, or back in the 80s and the early 90s. And then, along with some colleagues, founded a business school, the Lagos Business School, which is now perhaps the best known business school in Africa.
Everyone is born for a purpose. Pat Utomi reveals his life's purpose.
My purpose is essentially defined by my view of second chapter, 15th verse of the second chapter of the Bible. I believe that we were created to be co-creators with God, moving creation towards His perfection. That is to say, when God says to us that we should have dominion over the earth, what is essentially being said to us is, I've given you talents. You must use it to make the world that you have made a better place. So, in pursuit of that co-creation essence of my being, I have tried to bring my energies and talents together with those of others to create ventures, to create social platforms to make for a better society. In that regard, I like to think of myself as, if you will, a blender. Just like you have a blender that blends your tomatoes and stuff, and you want to make a good stew. I like to work with other people. I like to see myself as part of a thread in a carpet. And I don't mind being stepped on if it will lead to a greater good. And that is really what matters. I like to see myself as someone running a race, almost in the manner that Paul, the disciple, said he was running a race and hoping that at the end he will win the crown. And so the race that I run, I believe, goes down two tracks. It's a race for immortality. And for me, the two tracks of immortality are material and spiritual. Material immortality for me is being able to live in a way that long after I've gone, people will remember that this guy whose body is long become dust was around because of certain kinds of social impact his existence had, because of things he said and did that people can go back to. And that is why one of the easiest ways to be immortal is to write a book. Of course, I've written many books. Of course, you live longer if you write good books, books that people can find. You and I take Shakespeare like a next door neighbor, even though he died hundreds of years ago, because we read Shakespeare till today and it resonates. It's like it was written yesterday. I very often use as example a man who lived more than 500 years ago, Prince, who wrote The Prince, Niccolo Machiavelli. We all routinely quote Machiavelli. One of my favorite quotes as a business teacher is, in fact, from Machiavelli. Most classes that I teach and I talk about change, I remind them that Machiavelli wrote long, long ago that nothing is more difficult to bring about than a new order of things. Because those who profit from the old order will do everything to prevent a new order from coming about. But those who could profit from the new order do not do enough to make it happen. Because man is incredulous in his nature, not wanting to try new things until he has witnessed experience of it. More than 500 years ago, the man said this, and today you and I routinely quote that. That's immortality, material immortality. Then, of course, there's spiritual immortality. If you're a person of faith, many of us believe that the ultimate, the transcendental ultimate, is to see God face to face. Hopefully, if you live well, struggle, because you don't get any person who is holy in this world, but you struggle hard enough, you will have the privilege of welcome good and faithful servant. And we aspire to that. And we have hope and desire that will happen to us. So I'm here to pursue immortality, material and spiritual.
Pat Utomi shares with us how we got to this height.
Well, I'm not sure where I am standing is a height, but how did I get to where I am? The gift of charity, God's love to start with, the love of many people along the way. I am as tall as many people who allowed me to stand on their shoulders through the course of my growing up, commitment of parents, siblings, friends, teachers. My teachers have been very, very influential in my life. So my interest was to become a media mogul. I wanted to own newspapers. So let me go off to graduate school, get a business degree, come and set up a chain of newspapers. And here I am in grad school. And this South African gentleman who was director of African Studies comes up to me and says, there are very many, many bright Nigerians who will become business moguls and all of that. It's good for your country. But your country is one of the most poorly managed countries in the world. If we could identify a couple of really smart Africans and encourage them to go the track of the policy sciences, and you get a joint PhD in public management, policy economics, and people like you can go down with backgrounds and become budget directors in your country, you could have a better run country. And my career trajectory made another turn, because I then began to imagine myself as budget director. Interestingly, about that time, President Reagan got elected in the United States of America and appointed a very bright young man called David Stockman, Federal Director of Budget in the U.S. He was 33 years old. And I was, again, by that time I was about 24 or so. And so I set a benchmark for myself to become budget director in Nigeria before my 33rd birthday. And this is what drove me. And so, of course, my ambitions changed, turned towards policy economics, public finance, and budgeting. And graduated with a PhD also in political science. And came to Nigeria, leaving the US the very day that I finished my dissertation. And arrived in Nigeria. Long story, cut short. I was writing some stuff on tax policy and all of that. Attracted the attention of the then vice president of the country. I got to meet him, long story short. And one day he sends for me and informs me that the president at the time, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, had approved for me to replace one of his advisors who had been my own professor at the University of Nigeria. And I thought, really? Yes, President Shagari has approved for you to replace Professor Denigwe. And my reaction was, oh, why? Because I didn't think of anything else to say. So can I think about it? So, okay, you can go think about it. And when I ran into a friend of mine as I was going home and told him, the friend thought something was wrong with me and said, could you park your car, get in my car, and let's go back until you finish thinking about it? Of course, I didn't do that, but that was how I was convinced that it was something I should do. So I was in government. Of course, not too long after that, there was a military coup. And I was out of government trying to run this business that I was just trying to start. And I was headhunted at the time because there were some challenges at Volkswagen of Nigeria. And the headhunting led me to arriving at Volkswagen in January of 1986 to begin another interesting phase of my life, because I didn't look for the job. I wasn't looking for a job. I was trying to build a business. I was actually, put off by being approached for the job because I thought, I'm building a consulting business here. But the consultant who approached me said, look, my friend, isn't it a shame that you are freelancing your way through life? You've never had big company experience. And that's why if you read my first autobiography, Reaching the Thunder Story of Its Own, just before my 40th birthday, 21 or so years ago, the book is titled To Serve is to Live. The first chapter was titled Still Freelancing, which was a joke about the late Felucia Longe's tease that I was freelancing my way through life. And so I took the bait, to go and get big company experience. My time budget for my time at Volkswagen was supposed to be 2 years. Get it on my CV that I have big company experience. And then I get to this company, 11-man operating committee. There were only 2 Nigerians. All the others were Germans. Anyway, I get in, and a year after, the German CEO who hired me, Klaus von Bothmer, was leaving the country to accept a position in Belgium as managing director of a plant in Brussels. And I said to him, well, I hope your leaving will not, if my leaving the company not long after you leave will not affect our friendship. I can come and visit you in Brussels, even though I don't work for the company, because I don't intend for this to be a long stay in the company. And he looks at me and says, you mean it's not obvious to you already that you'll be the first Nigerian to run this company? I thought you were clever enough to have noticed that. Well, a few months after he left, I became deputy managing director of the company. So instead of spending 2 years, I ended up spending 8 years at Volkswagen before the vision of the Lagos Business School hit, and we became part of pioneers one more time. It's a career of pioneering, and we embarked on a quote-unquote mission impossible. No, it's not possible. First, the policies in the country did not allow for private tertiary institutions. We tried to find ways around it. We knew Nigerian companies were spending a lot of money sending executives for training at Harvard and all these other places, and we thought that more could be done with better local emphasis, training people locally. So we fought the system, we did all kinds of things, and the Lagos Business School was born. what they said was not possible would prove to be dramatic in the results, the outcomes, because as you probably know, within 15 years, that school that was founded in one living room would be ranked by the Financial Times as one of the top 50 schools, business schools in open executive enrollment in the world.
As a word of advice to the younger generation, Pat Utomi says,
Well, life is a long distance race. It's very important to have a clear goal very early. Ask yourself, what's the meaning of being? What are some really big, hairy, audacious goals that I should pursue based on clear principles, on a character that leads to that destination that you have chosen? I think that if young people learn that, then they will be able to escape the crushing sense of trying to, look at the size of the neighbor's Mercedes. This rat race of my Mercedes is bigger than yours. There's nothing wrong with prospering. It's wonderful. But there's bigger meaning to being. There's a saying that I always forget to quote accurately. Many times we are chasing money we do not need to buy things we don't really want in order to impress neighbors that we don't like. And many people are caught in that rat race. But if you pause to reflect, decide where you want to go and decide what's important and have some basic principles, and you continue to shape your conscience continually, form your conscience properly, you will find that ultimately you will be a happier person. And it does not mean that your bank account will necessarily be small. So there's nothing wrong with a fair-sized bank account if you arrive there doing that which is more fulfilling.
as a challenge, Professor Pat Utomi nominates the following people whose lives are worthy of emulation.
Well, there are a number of people that I've been influenced by, and I think that their lives should challenge those of people younger than myself. Because I actually started out very early, most of the people that I associated very closely with early in my career were much, much older than myself. I have come to hold in very high regard people like Mr. Akintola Williams, people like Dr. Michael Omolayole, people like Dr. Christopher Kolade, and of course, the now late Dr. Pius Okibo were amongst people who had the most influence on me earlier, and includes also Gio Babia Sika. I look at younger people who are doing some of the right things that I like to encourage, and I look at people like Professor Fabian Ajogu, who has been a good example to young people, and I hope people like Ndidi Muneli of Leap Africa and Co. These are people I think show example to new generation. Look at people like Gbenga Sheson and Fela Durotoye, who are amongst a group of younger people that I have been privileged to mentor. And so look to those people, and probably you'll find a clearer path going forward.
Stand up, stand up.
This information is accurate as of 7 September 2016 and does not reflect subsequent edits. This recording is distributed under the terms of Pagepedia.com.